Welcome to episode 9. Can I afford not to be generous?
Well, I don't like superficiality, so
no, I
let's
don't
go
either.
deep.
So let's do it.
Let's go deep. Generosity is a key to unlocking that impact.
Generosity, I think, is less about what we haphazardly do and more what we plan for.
We've got to move from looking for a reason to give to actually developing a rhythm of giving. Yeah.
And imagine if I served you leftovers. I mean, you quite like leftovers. That was a bad analogy. Generosity surely cannot be just having a spare change mentality. Hey everyone, we're really glad that you've joined us. My name is Leanne Morgan.
And my name is Gareth Morgan.
And we are excited to get into another conversation with another question today. So if you're watching on YouTube, why not leave us a comment? And don't forget to like and subscribe as well, because that really helps us know that people are there. Or you can let us know on one of our social media platforms what you think. Or if you go to the podcast platform.
Yeah, rate and review it, I believe it's called. So you can select, I think, so many stars and also just say what you like about it or what could be improved or what could make it better. Just create some interaction. That would be amazing. And of course, it helps other people get to hear the conversation. It's a great way that we can all serve others, because if we're talking about things that you think are going to help people, then you can help more people by doing these things.
Absolutely. And we love to create community. We love to meet new people. We love to connect with everyone. We are not just about sitting here chatting to ourselves, although it does help us and we enjoy that. But we really want to connect with a community and create a new community, a winning life community. So let us know that you are there, because we want to connect with you.
Yeah. Because people are amazing. You know, people come in all shapes and sizes. They come with all different personalities. They have different strengths and weaknesses. And, you know, people are just incredible.
Yeah.
You know, and so, again, that is the potential that's inside somebody that, for me, grabs my attention. But before we dive into the question, Leanne, let me ask you, have you met or observed anybody recently who has grabbed your attention? So has there been a person, because people are brilliant, you know, and somebody you thought, wow, you know, I've just noticed that, or wow, look at that. Isn't that cool that person is, I don't know, whatever they're doing? Has there been somebody that's got your attention?
Are you hinting you want me to talk about you, how you've inspired me?
No. Well, if we'll create a whole series for that. No.
I actually, it was last week on the weekend. I was driving, it was Sunday morning, and I passed a guy. I was at the traffic lights, and he was running. I was in the car, obviously. He was running, and he was literally probably in his late 80s, I would say. He looked old. But he was fit as a fiddle. Like, he had his smartwatch out and everything, like doing his times. And I was fascinated because, honestly, by the look of his face, he was definitely well into his 80s. And I'm really sorry if he ever listens to this and he's like 60. No, he definitely was well on in years, but he was fit. And it challenged me, because I thought, you know, really at that age, I would be putting my feet up and, you know, just kind of enjoying my silver lining years, you know, but he actually was going for it, like, just, and it was inspirational. He was running faster than I run.
Amazing. Wow.
So that I was challenged and inspired by that.
That is cool. That is cool.
What about you?
So let me just have a think. So, there's lots of situations and scenarios where I find, of course, always an inspiration. or I'm always curious about your behaviour.
All right, move on.
An enigma. But I think I was out driving, and there was this scenario when I was overtaking somebody in the third lane. And then I came into the second lane, and somebody, you know, was so encouraging and celebrated my driving so much that they leant over as they passed, and they gave me this funny, like, signal and wave. And it looked like they were celebrating me with real passion in their face. It was like I just thought, isn't this a brilliant world where They just celebrated the fact that I overtook this person and pulled into the middle lane. I just thought, we live in such a kind country. And so, I just thought, I just said, God bless that person. May they have an incredible day. They were so generous with their actions and with their attitude today. So, we love people.
I mean, to be fair, with your driving, it's no wonder.
No, seriously, obviously it was not. I don't think there was a generous spirit behind it.
I'm pretty certain there wasn't, and I've driven behind you, and trust me, I've wanted to bump you off the road and all.
Deary me.
It's so.
Anyway,
let's move on.
But no, seriously, no, 9 times out of 10, I don't feel generous back towards somebody who does that. So I'm not, any different in that sense to you. But on this occasion, I did just smile. In fact, I'm not sure at the time if smiling back at them
probably
helped.
Irritated them
but
more.
Honestly, I am being honest now. It was a genuine smile back at them, not a smirk. And I just thought, gotta have an amazing day. Just to get passionate in that moment about
saint,
that.
You.
No, because no. Honestly, there must have been something. I must have been
too tired to respond.
Yeah, I don't know. But hopefully I'm going to learn to respond more and more like that. And if I was at fault, but I don't think I was, honestly, not this time, I will keep trying to improve my skills.
Yes, that's needed. Anyway, so shall we go on to today's question?
It is linked.
It is slightly linked.
Not to driving.
Definitely not. The question is, can I afford not to be generous? Can I afford not to be generous?
Yeah, and of course, when we talk about generous, immediately what comes to mind is money to people. But we are talking about a generous spirit. So we are talking about, how we, approach people in our attitude, in our behavior, through, our interactions with people, in word, in conversation, in social media, in responding on comments, as well as what we do with our finances. So it's all of those things, isn't it, when we talk about generosity? Yeah,
absolutely. We can just get caught up simply into financial kind of terms, which obviously includes that.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to look across everything in terms of generosity. Am I generous with my compliments? Am I generous with my time and energy with people, or do I just kind of hold back? So, we can take this kind of as superficially as you like, or really go deep and look at real generosity and how it affects us.
Yeah. Well, I don't like superficiality, so
no,
let's
I don't
go
either.
deep.
So let's do it.
Let's go deep.
Let's do it.
Yeah, 100%. And I think those that are listening are people who want to win in life. You wouldn't tune in otherwise. You have aspiration. You have hopes. You have dreams, which is why I think when looking at this question, we need to understand what generosity is and the role that it has on shaping our lives, as well as those that we're generous to. And I guess there's a principle I'd like to put out there straight away. It's a proverb from the Bible, and it's Proverbs 11 verse 24, which says, "The world of the generous gets larger and larger. The world of the stingy gets smaller and smaller." Now, if you believe that to be true, and you don't have to be a Christian to believe that's true, because I think majority of people would say, actually, when you're stingy, you become tight and you become narrow-minded, you become just focused about yourself. And actually, when you're generous and you're thinking about others, that does, it unlocks influence. It unlocks just a bigger life. So I think everybody would agree with that principle. But let's look at it in terms of, mission. Let's look at it in terms of impact.
Yeah.
Actually, generosity is a key to unlocking that impact. If I neglect generosity, I am going to actually reject the opportunity to have the impact and influence that my potential is capable of. I absolutely believe that. Again, there's another proverb that says, "The gift opens the way for the giver and ushers them into the presence of the great."
Yeah.
So if you work that backwards, if you want to get into places of influence, to bring change, to reshape industry, sectors, business, if you want to create a product that improves people's lives, whatever it is, if you want to have that level of influence, then work that proverb backwards. To enter the presence of the great, it is the gift that opens the door. If we don't have that generous spirit, then that door will remain closed, and we will always be on the other side of that influential space that we are capable and that God has gifted and graced us to enter. But generosity is the key.
So I think it's important for us to look then what really is generosity, because we can think if we have, I mean, we did it the other day. Do you remember we were in London and we were walking down the street and I said, we passed the guy selling the big issue.
Yeah.
And I've bought it a few times, but it's great because it used to be like, oh, I'm really sorry, I don't have any cash on me. Well, there's no excuse anymore because they carry a little card reader on them, which is brilliant. And we walked past him the first time and I said, you know, we began talking about it, didn't we? And then we came back and we bought it the second time. And because I genuinely thought, no, do you know what? I need to. Was that an act of generosity, or was that me just spending a couple of pounds because I wanted to help? You could say, well, yes, it was generosity, but really, generosity, I think, is less about what we haphazardly do and more what we plan for. Like you might have a spontaneous moment, like at the till, where I've had it before. I've gone, someone's a bit short, and you just go, oh, I'll pay that bit, or don't worry about it. Let me help you. I remember one particular time I was in a supermarket and there was a young mum. She was very stressed and she was crying, and she'd bought her shopping, but she didn't have any money to buy the bags to put the shopping in, and the baby was screaming. And I remember going out to the car and just giving her my shopping bags and just saying, just take them. And she was like, no. And I said, honestly, take it. Was that generosity? Yes, it was. But really, I should be almost actively looking for those opportunities rather than them by chance appear. Having a spirit of generosity is different to being generous just in the moment, because I think we all have compassion. You know, in that moment, I'm sure a lot of us would have gone, oh, I'll buy your bags, or I'll give you new bags, or like I'll buy the big issue, or, you know, and we're thinking about those little moments. But actually, what about planning for generosity? Because that's a generous spirit. That's today, I'm actively going to go out of my way to show generosity to somebody with my words, with my time, with my finance, all the resources that have been given to me. And I was going to ask another question, but we'll come to that in a moment.
No, I think it's a great point, because I think there are levels, aren't there? And I think, you know, at our worst, and again, we've all been in this state, so this isn't about kind of pitting people off against one another. It's almost about regulating where we are. But in our kind of default state as human beings, we're generous when there's an obvious benefit to ourselves for doing something generous. Okay,
yes.
So even if that's the appearance of generosity.
Yeah.
So let's come to the big issue, Guy. And we walked past him several times after that, and I think he either forgot that we'd already bought. And
we kept saying, we have bought one, we've got that issue.
Yeah. And so you can do something almost because of the appearance. Okay, so we can do something out of that place. The next level up, I guess, would be we can give kind of sporadically. Yeah. So actually, yeah, you know, if I see somebody, I'll do that, and that kind of becomes a habit, you know. So it becomes a habit, but the habit is driven by an external stimulus. In other words, I see a situation, I see the big issue, guy, girl, I see the person on the streets, or let's talk about something else, like, you know, I open the door for somebody else because I see they're struggling, whatever it might be. Again, you know, we can develop a habit. Now, that's good. That's great. But I think if we want to truly win in life, we've got to move from looking for a reason to give to actually developing a rhythm of giving. Yeah. And the shift there is that a reason, again, is external. So it's triggered. Habits are triggered by something that we see. So every habit, if you break down what a habit is, it always starts with a trigger. And then there's some reward in that cycle. But actually, a rhythm is about doing it from a place of principle, from a place of belief, from a belief as in, this is who I am. Now you don't have to, let's look at a role that you have in life. So you're a mum. You don't have to look for a reason to be a mum.
No.
You don't rely upon our children, or that they're getting older, so but they still ask for things.
Definitely do.
The cost of the things they ask for goes up.
I still ask my parents for things.
But that you don't have to wait for those things. Like, you've adopted the role of mum. It's who you are, and therefore you operate. There's a rhythm to that. You wake in the night thinking about them. In other words, your subconscious thinks as a mum, not just your conscious mind. So again, I think, this comes to values, and generosity has to, I believe, be a key value. In fact, I dare say, I don't think you can have another value that isn't connected to generosity. So therefore, it has to be, this is who I am.
Yeah.
So I'm actively looking to develop a rhythm. If success, which we talked about in our previous episode, is about bringing the best of who I am to what matters most each day, I need to be developing that rhythm, and it needs to be a lens through which I look at life, not an external trigger.
Hi everybody, and welcome to the Winning Life TV. Thank you for tuning in, and hopefully you've been listening to all the episodes so far. But we don't want to just talk at you, we want to have a conversation with you. So we want to share something really exciting that is coming up, and we're inviting you to it. Now, Gareth, tell us, what is happening on February the 20th?
On February the 20th, Leanne, we're going to have an online environment where we talk about the MVP plan and the MVP journey that we are encouraging people to get on board with. Many people have downloaded the MVP plan and may look at it and think, okay, this is a really useful tool, but how do I really take it and maximize it and help me to break out of that repeating pattern that's stopping me making progress in my personal or professional life?
That's good. So if someone's listening to this and thinking, okay, great, is this for me? Who is it for?
This is for anybody who is hungry to grow, humble to learn, and wants to become the MVP in their environment, in the space where they operate day in, day out. In other words, that person who stands out so that they can start to shape and influence that arena to produce positive outcomes, to produce great results. And so we want you, if you believe in your heart that you are an MVP, you have an aspiration to achieve great things, then we want you to be in this environment.
So how is it going to work? People might be thinking, is it in person? Is it online? What's the setup?
So we're going to be on Zoom, and we are going to have that environment where we can interact, where we can break down into groups. And so we're going to introduce you into that environment and explain how it's going to be a regular environment going forward that people can be part of, because we really believe that there is more in you than you think. But we all need somebody to help draw that out of us. And that's what the environment is for.
Well, I'm really excited to be there. I can't wait to start it. So come and join us on Monday, 20th of February. All the details of how you can sign up for this will be at thewinninglife.tv. Make sure you're there. We'll be there. We're excited to start this community. So see you soon. Yeah, and I think we need to get out of the and this was the kind of other question I was going to ask about generosity. It surely cannot be just having a spare change mentality or spare minute mentality, because that's excess of what we have rather than sometimes giving out of a lack. Because again, going back to the Bible, when generosity is taught, it is often out of people's lack. When they give, that's when their generosity was praised. It was often when they had nothing and they gave everything that was the example to follow. And obviously in some of those situations, some of the people that Paul the Apostle talks about, they literally had nothing, but they gave so that people had something. And I think that is particularly poignant for today's society. not just because we're in a cost of living crisis,
in the
which
era
we
that we're in,
are.
it's very, very real.
The kind of underlying theme is hold on to everything, store up your time, store up your money, store up your energy, keep it for you, because we're going through a famine, as it were, both financially and everything else. But actually, the way we're designed and why people find that difficult is because actually we should be the opposite. Now, I'm not telling you that to get into debt or to run yourself into the ground, or when you're exhausted, keep going. It's about being sensible, but this is where planning comes in. And if you have the spirit of generosity, if you budget your generosity, both financially and with your time and your energy and all the other things, it's like you said, it's creating this rhythm. But we've all fallen into that trap of thinking that being generous is simply the spare change in my bag, although I don't really carry cash anymore, or the spare time I have in the week. I find that sad. That's like the leftovers. When I think that there's a principle of you give God the first and best, then it's others, and then I have what's left. And essentially that's what we talked about the other day about, the order of loving ourselves. But it's a pattern that if we don't adopt, we will slip into praising ourselves and becoming prideful and proud and thinking, oh, I've helped all these people and I've given this and I've done that. And really, it's just been out of the margin of what I've got left over.
Yeah.
And imagine if I served you leftovers. I mean, you quite like leftovers. That was a bad analogy. And now we've got one less child at home, living at home. I've always got leftovers. But imagine if that's all I ever served up, or it's not thought about the same as someone who's prepared something good. If I invited someone over for a meal, I don't just grab the scraps of what's left over in my cupboard. I will go and give them the best. And I think that's what generosity is about.
100%. Whereas the Apostle Paul, who talks about, if regardless of what the action is, and you can go and read 1 Corinthians 13, and everyone would have heard 1 Corinthians 13, whether you read the Bible or you don't believe it, because it's read in the majority of marriage ceremonies, and it talks about essentially without love it's meaninless. That actually even the greatest act of generosity in inverted commas or charity without love is meaningless. So absolutely, we have to make sure we're being driven by the value of generosity, by the value of love, and again, not just responding to a trigger, a sense of duty, and a sense of, or worse still, doing it because of how it makes me look. And I think we're in a cost of living crisis at the time of recording this. I think it's affecting people to different. It's affecting everybody, but obviously to differing degrees. For some people, it's crippling. So it's at times like this, and again, we've led a church for over 20 years. We've seen human nature, and we know human nature because we're humans as well, and we're all prone to the same kind of challenges. But the first thing to go when somebody falls on hard times is giving. Now, of course, in one sense, of course it is, because it's the thing that immediately there's no immediate consequence. If I stopped paying the lighting bill or I stopped paying the mortgage, then there's a consequence, and it won't be far away. And of course, it's a felt need. So of course, in the pecking order, giving looks like the kind of thing that we can just immediately neglect. But this is where we have to, again, and we're not here to tell you what you must believe or what principles you must adopt. But if you believe the principle of generosity is essential to your life, if it's part of your belief system, as it is ours, then it's actually in the times that are tough when that principle is tested. We need to realize that a principle that is untested probably hasn't been truly adopted as a principle.
That's true,
And so we need to realize that in those moments when it's tough and challenging and I'm running out of stuff, then I need to ask myself the question, okay, am I willing to sell out on my principle here? Because actually, if we sell out on our principles, we actually have nothing of lasting value left. Now, again, I'm not saying go give all your money away and don't pay your mortgage.
No.
Please hear me right.
No.
Again, this is about planning.
It is.
It's about having a strategy. And again, and I think I've been really challenged by this question. And let me say right now, I wouldn't say that we've completely nailed this. In fact, it's probably one thing you don't fully nail. You're constantly working on it.
It's always a changing goal because it gets bigger and
But what is your strategy for generosity?
Yeah, good.
Now one of the things that we do is we look at, we are conscious that we want our percentage of giving to keep increasing and not to shrink, and it hasn't. And so over the years, now of course there are some years we have more money than others, but it's about percentages. And I think when it's planning, percentages are good. I shouldn't necessarily buy something that is going to take a huge chunk of my percentage, because actually that's going to have a knock-on effect of other areas. Now, this isn't a budgeting seminar, but really, again, we need to think of, I think, in generosity and any principle, as in, how do I measure this?
Yeah.
Like, how do I measure if I really believe it?
And I think it's fair to say that we have been recipients of incredible amounts of generosity in the past, so this isn't just what we have put into place, it's what we've received and we've learned from that. And I think that's being part of a church community has been massively part of that. And what I love as a church community is we're actively always looking, how can we help and be generous to others? It's not just about charity, it's not just about people falling on hard times, it's about how can we actively be looking for those moments to exercise generosity. But we have been the recipients of that, and that has helped us. And there have been times where I feel that's what's got us through. And the thought of being able to do that for other people regularly because I've planned for it inspires me. I want to be that person who has literally helped someone get through. I don't want to say, well, someone else will do it. Someone else will pick that up.
Yeah.
Does it really matter? Does my little bit really matter? Does my small bit of time for that thing or that person really matter? If we get into that, then we question everything we do, because every little thing, every word, every moment, every penny does matter.
And then you're into reasons again. So again, we'll be open and say, there was a time back in 2019, the end of the year, when we literally got to the point where it was a few £100 in the bank, and we had mortgage ahead of us. We had, Christmas. Christmas was ahead of us, and literally, we had some money that came in, and in that moment, everything kind of in your humanity, as it were, or in your circumstances, says, you've got to put that towards. The things that you need to pay.
Yeah.
Now for us as Christians, tithing, giving the first 10% of what we have into the local church is a principle that we've always lived by.
Yeah.
And so in that moment, if it's a principle that we live by, we can't allow a reason to talk us out of it. A principle, again, in that moment is tested. And again, that money, when it came in, it's the first thing that we actively do. And we don't make it religious and say to people, if this is something you believe, then you've got to quickly do it and make it the first thing. But for us, we almost like it. We almost kind of get a buzz off the fact that we're reinforcing our principle. As soon as it comes in, we do it. And actually, then we've seen our kids do exactly the same, because again, they kind of.
And we've never told them to do that. They've just seen it exampled. And I think there is a joy in that, because that part for me isn't generosity. That's obeying a principle, which is completely different. Yeah. When I pay my mortgage, it's not a generous act. I have to do it. So when I treat that the same, not that, exactly the same, but it's a joy to do that, to give, because it is. I don't see it as mine anyway. It's already gone. But anything on top of that is.
But then again, it's about, that's a principle, isn't it? In one sense, the principle of generosity doesn't then suddenly become this, hear me right when I say this. Of course, it's something I want to do, but it actually becomes a deeper thing of, have to do.
Yes.
And again, not
The demand.
duty bound, but as in like really just like deeply instilled. Because the reality is you're not always going to feel like doing it.
Yeah.
You know, and again, it's a bit like health. You know, if you're in a good rhythm of routine of exercise, then you realize actually, yeah, there are some times when you actually enjoy doing it, but sometimes it is like, I have to do it.
Yeah.
And again, you relegate your emotion beneath the principle. And again, that's what we're encouraging you to do. Have a think about generosity. Is it a reason, or do you have a rhythm?
Yeah.
Is
good.
it a principle, or is it just kind of something that you sporadically do? I want to challenge you again, whatever kind of belief system you have, I believe it's a principle that applies to mankind. Okay, now the bigger and deeper reason is by the fact that we're created in the image of a God who is a giver. It is who he is.
Yeah.
But if you want to unlock the future that you are capable of delivering, which is for the benefit and sake of others, then generosity is the key that stands between you and the doorway to that place of influence.
Yeah, maybe a good action point from going out from today is, you know, how am I going to build this into my plan? You know, if you've already got that, brilliant. How can you kind of increase that or look at more? But I think it would be a good action point to look at something. How do I actively build generosity into my daily life, into my budget, my time, my diary, my energy, all of that? And who is that going to be for as well? I think that's really key. Look for those people. So we're not just living with a spare change mentality, but it becomes part of our discipline.
And of course, the MVP plan.
Yes.
That's what we're here to do, to take these principles that we're talking about and sharing experiences and challenges and being open and honest and real about the challenges that we have with all these principles. But the plan keeps us to the principles.
Yeah.
And so if you don't have a plan, if you don't have a clear plan that's inspiring, that enables you to remain focused and to keep your emotions in check when you try and veer from kind of staying on the straight and narrow in terms of like what you're trying to achieve in life, then you need to get a plan. And we'd love to help you with that. So do go and visit the winninglife.tv website. Check out the links below and join us to put together your plan. Remember, there's more in you than you think, and there are people out there right now who need you to become who you were always created to be.
See you next time.
Take care.
We hope that you enjoyed that episode. And if you enjoyed it, please go and subscribe over on all of our channels on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, and not forgetting your favorite podcast platform. And if you head over to thewinninglife.tv, you'll be able to find all the resources available to you. Gareth has written several books which will help you on your discovery to building stronger and better lives. Come and join us for the next episode.